over selection tools, and you guys are going to be learning some of the different tools in Photoshop. So right here we've got selection tools practice part 1, and you'll want to download Aquarium and Aquarium tools part 1 here in a minute after I go over these things. The first one we're going to be doing is messing around with this worksheet right here, where we're going to be learning some of the different ways we can select things out of the environment. So this first one's asking us, well, as we look at Photoshop for the first time, because we haven't messed with it too much, we have our toolbar right here, and it might look like that, or it can look like that, and we'll have all of the different tools we have. Right up here, we have different ways we can modify our image, so different things in edit, in image, in layers, what we can do with type, and our selections, which we'll get a little bit more into detail on these later on. If things look weird on yours and you open it up and you're just like, you know what, I don't have any of these windows and I don't even have like a toolbar here, because some of you guys will come to me and be like, I don't know what happened, like is gone. Come up here to window and workspace. Make sure essentials is selected, because there are a bunch of different things, like the 3D environment has a whole different environment, graphics and web, different layout as well, but we work in essentials here. So just go to essentials, and then if it's still wrong, reset essentials, and it'll reset it to the default. The big one we want to be paying attention to with this is layers right here, and we can close up color because we really want to see this layers panel. Layers is how things are stacked up on top of each other in the image. So right now, all I have is the background layer and it's locked, and I can unlock it by clicking on that. It'll turn into layer 0. But as we start to like grab things, it'll add new layers. So the first thing it asks us to do here is to move this yellow fish over using the rectangular marquee tool. And if you look right here, it's the one that looks like a little rectangle box. And that'll be hidden underneath right here. So we've got the rectangle and the ellipse. And most of the tools, if they have this little triangle right down here in the bottom, will have a bunch of other tools underneath them. So that way they can save some space. So if I want to get the rectangle, I'll click down here, and yours might be the rectangle by default. Once we have the rectangle, we can drag it out over the fish. And if we try to click it and move it, what happened? It just moved the box. So if we want to be able to move that fish within the box, we'll switch off of the rectangle tool to this top one, the move tool. And I mean, Photoshop's amazing now for you guys, because look at, I hover over something and it's just like, oh, that's what it does. It also tells you what letter of the alphabet, and you can even click on learn more and it'll give you a full thing. But if we click on that move tool, I can click on this guy, move him right over here. See this little checkerboard pattern right there? Anybody know what that means? Anybody ever see that with like images online before? Yeah, transparent, perfect. So like if I added another layer underneath this one and like painted it a color, oh, let's get rid of that selection. If I paint that entire layer blue, the only part that'll show up is that transparent spot. All right, so that looks okay, but I mean, we want to be able to select things better than that. And the second one asks us to use the elliptical marquee tool or just the circle. And we could select it with like the circle here. And as I hold shift, I can draw new circles and be like, okay, let's try to get all parts of the seahorse here as circles. And that's a little bit better than just doing the square. And I can hold shift to add things, or if I want to remove a part of it, I can hit Alt, and whatever I draw on that circle will take away from that shape. So shift to add, Alt to remove, And now I can go back to that move tool, get onto the right layer, and I can move this guy on over. That's a little better, but still not perfect. One of the new tools that they have for you guys that didn't exist when I was learning this in high school is quick selection tool. And what this will allow us to do is make quick selections. Like, it's crazy. So as I click on the turtle, I can drag over its body, and that went a little bit too far, so I'm going to undo that. But I can just drag over him, and that selected too much, so I'm going to hit Alt and select this blue water out, and that's pretty good. If I zoom in, I can go back to that quick selection tool, hold shift, click on its belly, try to get these areas back in, hit Alt, remove that area. If I want this circle to be smaller, I can click on where it says 30 here, reduce the size down, so I can remove those spots, hold shift to add those in. And then I can move this guy on over. So, little better. Quick selection works really well when things stand out of the background. If the background was really complicated, like we kind of saw his belly was almost the same color as the background, it was having trouble, it was trying to pick that up. But if there was like another turtle behind it, quick selection would try to pick up that turtle as well, because it's just looking for matching colors. The final tool I want us playing with is the magnetic lasso. And there's a few different lassos here under L. Like the main lasso lets us draw. And I don't know how steady your guys' hands are, but if I was trying to draw this entire fish, it's gonna look like a 5-year-old like cut it out. Even if I spend all of my time, I'm not gonna be able to stay along with that, especially with like a mouse. But I could just drag that, get back to the start. It's got that selection, looks rough. The other lasso tools we have here are the polygonal, which lets us do straight lines, where if it was a building or a block, it'd be perfect. With this fish, it ain't gonna do a lot for us. So the one we want to use is the magnetic lasso tool, and this one's just full on magic because it'll try to stick to the edge of an object that matches in color. So as I'm bringing it around, every once in a while I'm clicking with my mouse to put down a point, but otherwise it's putting down its own points. And I can just drag this and just try to stay close to the edge, and it'll put this right on the edge of the color there. Especially with images like this where it's like blue there and white outside, it'll work really well. If I make a mistake and the points start going that way, I can hit backspace on the keyboard and get rid of them, which I didn't know about in high school. My teacher just let me like deselect it and restart every time. It took forever. But I just make my way back to the beginning and I have that. If I want to remove this little bit from its arm, I can hold down Alt and make a new little selection right there. So now I can move this around. That's a pretty clean selection. If we put it over things, it'll look all right. And what I want you guys practicing with right now is doing exactly that. We're gonna move the fish over using the rectangle, using the elliptical, using quick selection, and using the magnetic lasso. Just play around with those for a minute here and have some fun with it. Sound good? All right, some pro notes here, guys, because I always forget to add some basic stuff. If I want to scroll around here on the document, I can come over here to the bars and move them up and down. Or if you hit the space bar, You'll notice my cursor turns into a hand, and it doesn't matter what tool you're using, it becomes a hand. And then you can click and drag it around. So if you're like trying to move somewhere, if you want to zoom in, if you hit Control and plus on your keyboard, you'll zoom in. Control minus will zoom out, and Control and 0 will go there. So you can just hold down the Control key and then start hitting minus to zoom out, hitting plus to zoom in, or hit Control 0 to fill up the frame with it. So space bar, Control plus, Control minus, Control 0, good tools to know as well.